Hey, kids. This is a tasty burger. Burger.
Alrighty guys, welcome to my video class. Welcome to our first day of video class. What I wanted to do is just take some time and show you some of the equipment, go over some of the camera functions that we will be using during these next 20 days. So follow along with me here and we'll see what happens. So first thing I would encourage you guys to try out is obviously your cell phone. So that is going to be this right here. Now I'm using an iPhone 7 Plus. It's pretty old. Now some of you guys might be using older phones. It's up to you, whatever phone you want to use. I have had great success with phones shooting video, and even this old phone, it still shoots really, really good video. In fact, new iPhones, the iPhone 12 and the 11, there's been a big movement to shoot full-length videos, films, music videos, cinematic films, full feature-length films, all on iPhones. Now, you can still shoot those videos on your iPhone, but they are going through professional editing processes, which is pretty significant. But the capability to shoot really good video is possible right here on your cell phone. And you can shoot and edit on your cell phone. So that's one option for cameras. And we're actually going to show you, or I'm going to show you, all the settings you can have on your iPhone, which you can figure out on Androids if you use an Android. But I want to be able to show you some of the cool stuff that you can do on a cell phone for video. The next thing you guys could use would be a DSLR. Now this is a Sony A7. If you have a camera, you can use it for this class. We will be, or I will be, checking out Canons a little bit later in the year, potentially. So if you really need a camera, I'll look into getting some Canons for you guys, things like that. Where this gets tricky is because it butts up next to Christmas break. I'd hate for you guys to turn it in late because you're traveling and then get dinged with a giant fine. However, if you have a DSLR, or at some point I will be checking out DSLRs, these are a great option. Now, what I like about DSLRs is they're going to give me control over two major features, and then I'll throw in a third feature for a bonus. First is shutter speed. Okay, I can go ahead and shoot with a high shutter speed. I'll show you the effects of that right now. Watch this. So I can take this here. I'm going to adjust my shutter speed. So what you're going to see when I do that, I'm going to adjust my shutter speed back here. All right. Oh, man, look at that. It got darker. So I'm going to have to adjust my aperture to make up for that. Well, it's not great. It's dark. Ow. All right. But you can see I'm going to get a much cleaner image, a much cleaner movement, because I'm actually videoing at this point at a very, very, very high speed. And so I'm going to get a lot of really interesting motion when filming at a high speed. And that's actually literally just changing the shutter speed and not frame rate, which we'll get to later in the year. Now, what else is interesting, I can go ahead and make this a really, really slow shutter speed, okay? And you can see here in my video, see how things are moving streaky and slow? Oh, that is so unpleasant. That is because I am filming at a slower frame rate. So it's getting this nice blurry look. So I don't like either of those. I like to be kind of somewhere in the middle. So we're gonna get back to something a little more normal like this. Open up my aperture. There we go. Okay, so again, on your DSLR, you can change aperture and you can change shutter speed, right? And get different visual effects. I'm gonna change that exposure. Now, using the right programs on your phones, you can do that same effect on your phone as well. Now, one thing that both the cell phone and the camera have that's really great is this right here. Zoom in, zoom out. I'm able to zoom in and zoom out, giving me more range of filming abilities. Okay, if you're filming something hot and you don't want to melt your camera, you can zoom in on it. Okay, it's really great. If you're trying to capture a wide shot, something cinematic of a whole city, zooming out is a really great option as well. And I'll show you that here on the phone in just a second. So that is the DSLR. That is my son trying to make sure that he can be heard on this video.
No, it's not.
But I told him not to. Now, I do have these. I've got a bunch of these. I'm not going to check them out to you guys yet But if we ever come back to in-person shooting, these are great because not only is it a camera, it's also a gimbal all built into one. Now I do have gimbals that we will use when we come back in person. So this is the camera right here. What's so cool about this, again, it's a 4K camera. You can shoot at 1080, you can shoot at high speed. It also is a gimbal. So here's the little camera right here. Now I'm gonna power this guy on. Boop, 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 it's thinking. There it is, y'all. So there is this super cool, tiny little 4K camera. The Osmos camera is a small camera that has a gimbal, so it allows you to stay dialed in and it keeps the camera straight even if you're running or moving, things like that. It's very, very cool. Again, here's that Osmo Pocket. You can see, you get it out of my face here. But that camera will stay, so I'll put it right here. There you go. That camera will stay tilted, okay, based on what I select. So if I select this spot right here, okay, this is a little more loose. Okay, it's gonna track with me. If I do this here, it's gonna follow. It's gonna stay, you know, focused on you, the camera, you, the viewer. So now what I want to show you guys are some of the camera features on the cell phone that will also show you kind of the visual effect that the visual effects you can get with the cell phone when shooting film, okay, or shooting videos. So I'm going to show you on the iPhone. This is where, you know what, being home and being independent, being in this kind of asynchronous learning space, you need to get really creative with how you understand your tech, right? If you're going to be a freelance video producer, right, a creator, well, guess what? You gotta do that on your own. There's no one there to hold your hand. You can Google it. You can do trial and error, but no one's there to help you. So I wish we were all in class so we all had the same tech, the same computer, the same things. But now is that time for the person, you as an individual creative person, go, okay, what do I have at my disposal to make videos, to make movies, to share ideas, to capture sound? This is like guerrilla video fair, right? It's, you guys are independent video producers and you got to get creative with what you got. And typically all of us have got cell phones. If you don't, email me, we'll figure something out. So what I want to do, guys, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to this. Whoa, there's my phone and there's my face. Okay, so first thing I want to do, I'm just going to go to the standard camera. Okay, this is my standard camera. Welcome to my vlog, my live stream space right there. Okay, so what I want to show you first and foremost is video. Right now, I've got a couple different kinds of video on my iPhone 7. Now I can go up here to the top, right at the very, very top, right there. It says 4K. I can click that, and it does nothing for me. All right, to fix that, I need to go over here to settings. Right, back over here. So these are my phone settings. So formats. I don't like to use high efficiency on my phone. I like to film with the most, the largest, most compatible, non-efficient file format. So I'm going to click that on my iPhone there. And then recording, I've got some options. I've got 720, 1080, 1080, and 4K. Now, the highest resolution is 4K, but I can't film at a high frame rate. Now, if I was filming food or I was filming something a little more dynamic or exciting, I would do it maybe with the 60 frames per second, because I would like to, if I'm going to slow things down, I'm going to have things dripping or water, I would change my frame rate or my frames per second to 60. It's going to give you a smoother video. However, for now, I'm not going to worry about that. I want better resolution at the moment, okay? Now, if you've got a phone with a small gigabyte or a small storage space, one of these is a better idea. Don't ever do 720 if you can help it. Try to do at least 1080. I'm going to stick with 1080 HD 60 frames a second. Okay. And there we go. There's that. Slow-mo recording options. I can do 720 faster. So 240 frame rates a second. What that means is I can film or I can slow it down even more. So if I have 30 frames per second, so 30 FPS, that means if I slow it down to twice as slow, I'm getting 15 frames a second, and that's really ugly, okay? Now, if I film in 120 frames a second, if I do it half as slow, That means I'm getting 60 frames a second, and that is really, really nice. I can go 4 times slower and still be at 30 frames a second. I'm gonna get a really smooth transition. So if I have water droplets hitting, bloop, the amount of slow-mo, I'm gonna have a really, really clean image of that thing splashing up if it's a water droplet. Now if I try to slow down 15 frames a second, it's gonna be blurry. Okay, now this one here, 720 is 240 frames per second. I can slow it down 6 times slower, and I'm gonna capture all sorts of detail. The downside is that it's 720, so it's not gonna be a clear video. I'm gonna stick with HD. Now on my DSLR, I can only go to 100 frames a second, but that's because it's not a high-speed camera. A high-speed camera can go to like 48,000 frames a second, which is insane. Anyways, so that's my high-speed settings, preserve settings, scan QR codes, grids, keep normal, blah, blah, blah. Perfect. Okay. Back to my camera here. So you can see up in my corner now, it does not say 4K. It says HD 60. Okay. Now here is a very, very important thing. So there's my face right there, guys. Ooh, there we are. Watch this. This is a huge rule. Whenever you are shooting a video, stop doing this. Videos like this is a big no-no. All of your videos should be filmed like this. So now what you're going to see from here on out, whenever I shoot demos, things like that, it will be sideways. I will no longer use my phone vertical. That's icky. All your films from here on out should be sideways. Notice how much more enjoyable this is versus vertical. So again, everything from here on out will be shot horizontally. Okay, so that's really all we got here. Okay, you know, interesting stuff, shooting videos. Okay, now I can click on something and focus in on that. I can click on something, focus in on that, click on something, focus in on that. I can also increase my exposure, decrease my exposure by tapping on my screen. Now, what's great about this here is it's all fairly automatic. However, if you want a really, really good photo, what you need to do is have a lot of light. If I zoom in, which is great, I can zoom in. See all those grainy little pixels? It's hard to see. Oh, grainy, grainy, grainy. See all those little moving bits of digital noise? That is my ISO. Now, the brighter this is, the brighter light I have, the smaller my little digital noise pieces, we call them pixels, are, the smoother my video is. So I always encourage you guys to have way, way, way more light than you think you need. Now, with that said, notice, we're gonna flip this around, see if it'll work. Whoa, hey, look at me. So you can see here, I've got 2 pictures. I've got one up in the corner. Yeah, it's hard to tell where things are. And then I have my camera right here, and I have my camera right here. This one right here, you can see, is still a much cleaner image because that photo sensor is 35 millimeters wide, while the photo sensor on my phone right here is like smaller than my pinky nail. Smaller than that. And so that's why you get much better resolution on a DSLR than you do on a cell phone. Now, with the Osmo, right here, this guy, okay, that one is just an even better sensor than it is on a camera on your phone. So there you go, guys. That's your stock video footage. Zoom out. Now, I prefer to use the following app. Film Ink Pro. Okay, now if you have the iPhone 12, or I think even the iPhone 11, and this particular app, what's so cool about it, guys, you can activate every single camera you have. Your zoom camera, your normal camera, your reverse camera, and you can film 4 video feeds at once on your camera, on your phone. Now, I don't know if this is on Androids. It's certainly on Apple products. Now, what I like about this here, I can pick what is in focus. So let's click on this here. I can also pick what is my exposure. Okay. I can come over here. I can change the temperature. All right. What's the color balance? Okay. Presets: tungsten, sunlight, cloudy, incandescent, custom, auto is always a good idea. Right now, if you want to pay more money for a better camera, you can pay more money for a better camera. I've got the base one here. It's good, but it's not the most elite version. It was only like $9. Definitely worth it. So this here, If I click, I've got a couple different things here. I'm going to click this little circle here. This here is my exposure. I can change my exposure on the left here. It's this little guy right there. Boop, 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 this little dot. You can see it in the bottom here. I can also change my focus. All right, I can actually focus my lens manually. I can also change it over to do zoom. Okay. ISO. I can take my ISO and change my ISO. I can also change my shutter speed. Okay, so this particular app, Filmic, gives me a lot of control. I'm going to zoom out here. Whoop, zoom out. Okay, downside of that. I also have this here. This is focus settings. All right, guys, we had some technical difficulties there. Anyways, I'm going to go back over here to my phone. There it is. What I want you guys to really see is always film horizontally, like this is here. Also, think about what is your frame rate. What is your resolution? Okay, if I click resolution here, I have some options right down here. Okay, 720 HD, standard definition. Yikes! Standard def is terrible, 540. So that means how big of a space I'm recording in. 720 means I'm actually recording in a larger space. 1080 means the amount of pixels I have activated. Notice this little window I'm in right here? This is 1080. Hello, 1080. Okay. 2K, right? Notice the quality of my video. Doesn't change a whole lot, but if we were to blow it up and make it bigger, it would be a huge difference. This goes to 3K, 4K. Okay. So what 4K means, guys, I'll jump over here real quick. This is resolution. This is what I want you to get from today. Resolution is this right here. Whoop, get rid of my in picture. It's the amount of pixels around this space. So this, what I'm in right now, is 1080. Okay. Now 1080 right here. If there was 4 of these, one here, boop, 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 that would be 4K. So one little chunk of 4K, 1/4 of 4K is 1080. All right, you keep cutting those up and you get smaller, smaller, smaller resolutions. The bigger the resolution, the better. 1080 is kind of our baseline. That's really considered high definition. So we're gonna film with 1080 whenever possible. Okay, so 4K is great. I've got a lot of 4K cameras. They're beautiful, but they're huge files and they can be so hard to work with. So what I'm gonna do, guys, I'm gonna set my camera just to 1080p. We're gonna be good to go. It's gonna work well for us. Now, ratio up at the top, I'm not worried about that. Okay. And then quality, I'm gonna stick with extreme with this particular app. This just makes for a smaller file, so it's a little easier to manage. Okay, so we'll go over there. So that's resolution. Frame rate is gonna be how fast I can collect an image. The human eye sees it about 25 frames a second. Okay, if anything's different than that, it can get kind of weird. It can get choppy or twitchy or flicky. So at 30 frames a second, you're gonna be very smooth, right? The way your camera records images is going to be nice and smooth, and you're not gonna have any major issues. You're not gonna see any blips. But if you were gonna show someone like playing a guitar string, it's gonna blur and have a hard time capturing the vibration of that guitar string. However, if I film at 120 frames a second and someone hits a guitar string, it's gonna really capture a lot of that detail in that vibrating piece of metal. So what that is, frame rate is how many pictures per second. The higher the frame rate, really the clearer video you can get. So ideally, if you guys could shoot in 4K at 120 frames a second, that's amazing. Well, we can't. Maybe you can. My cameras aren't gonna do that. The best I can do is 4K at I think 60 frames a second realistically. I can do 1080 at 100 frames a second on my DSLR. Now on this camera here, I can do 120 at 1080. It works out pretty good. Okay, guys? So really what I want you to get from this here, I'm gonna come back to my face, boom, is I want you to think about, set your camera to 1080 at least 30 frames a second. That's gonna get you a really good setting. Also, always film horizontally, not vertically, horizontally, okay? Lastly, let's talk about storage, guys. All my storage on my iPhone here is internal. I've got a 250 gigabyte space on my phone. That's my hard drive, my storage space. So I've got no problem shooting videos on here. I can shoot a lot of videos and still have plenty of space. This here is only 16 gigabytes and it's shooting at 4K. That is 19 minutes of footage on 16 gigabytes. If I shoot 4K on this one here, I can shoot for like 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours and still have space, okay? Now, on this camera here, if I choose to shoot at a much higher frame rate, right, 120 at 4K, then I need to have a really, really fast SD card. Now, this particular camera, it runs, it's hard to see, it runs 2 SD cards. Most of you guys are only going to be running 1. SD card right there. What's important about SD cards, now, if you got an SD card and you're having a hard time, if it's having a hard time capturing data, this one captures 95 megabytes of data every second. That's really, really fast. That's this one here. This one only does 80 megabytes a second. Hard to see what it is there. So you have to have like a class 10 SD card really to capture video. Okay, photos is no big deal, but because you're trying to record so much data so quickly on a camera, you need to have a class 10 video SD card. And those cost a lot more money than your regular SD card. Now, whenever we check out cameras, every camera already has a class 10 SD card loaded into it and it's ready to rock and roll. These all have class 10 SD cards, so you'll be able to record in 4K, no problem. However, you're at home, you're probably gonna be using a cell phone. That's gonna make life so much easier. It's less tech, it's less to carry around. And I'm gonna show you some videos later this week shot all on iPhones, and they are beautiful. All right, guys, that is a very, very quick, very, very fast and dirty explanation of cameras, the tech you're gonna have at your house. And we're gonna dig into it more and more and more throughout each assignment, what you're gonna be doing with it. But attached to this assignment is a worksheet. That worksheet's gonna ask you to look up and research different terminologies when it comes to cameras. Do that, and that'll get you really, really familiar with all the vocabulary I'm gonna be using. Okay, guys? So again, look at that handout. It's gonna have vocab, it's gonna have terms. Fill those things out, Google them, get a definition, and that's gonna help you get a good head start of where we're gonna be. And that's gonna give you what you need for tomorrow. I'm gonna be using vocabulary, I'm gonna be using terms that might be confusing for some of you or new for you. So complete that sheet. It's going to develop your video vocabulary. It's going to help to develop some awareness of terms that I'll be using, so you'll be ready to rock and roll when we start class tomorrow morning. All right, guys. See you then.